Good morning, or depending on when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so I've made a podcast all about the Pokemon trading card game.
You're listening to PTCG Radio.
Now, last week I did a fairly mammoth podcast. It came in at around about 53 minutes long. Rest assured, this week won't be as long. Last week we had to go all through the new Boundaries cross set, and there was a huge amount to get through. This week there's much less news, so I'll go through it a little bit. I'm going to have a quick chat about Blastoise and Keldeo, and then I'm going to finish off by telling you about some very interesting news I found on the forum today. But if you want to hear about that, you're going to have to wait till the end. Or I suppose you could skip to the end, but that wouldn't be very nice now, would it? The first thing you need to know about this week is Aldershot Regionals. Now, I gave Aldershot a shout out when they did their Battle Roads, and the reason I did was quite frankly because they're awesome and you should go down. This Sunday, not Saturday, Sunday, they are doing their regionals, and I'm going to repeat what I said for the Battle Roads. If you live in the UK and you possibly can, get yourself down there. It's going to be a brilliant tournament. They've got space for 80 players, and as was pointed out by Martin Cornwall, the event organiser, the only place that gets that many people is Nationals. So go on down, there's going to be room for you, it's going to be a really good tournament. I myself will be there. Now, I know I said I'd be there for the Battle Roads, but due to some personal reasons I don't wish to go into right now, I was unable to make it. However, Aldershot Regionals, I will be there this Sunday. Quite frankly, I'm grinding for points for a Worlds invite. I will unfortunately have to leave early to get to a Frank Turner gig, but I'm sure you'll all forgive me for that. But get yourself down to Aldershot Regionals this Sunday. Just Google Aldershot, Aldershot, Regionals. Google Aldershot Regionals. Get yourself down there. It's going to be a fantastic day. Now, there are some other little bits of news that have come out which I think are worth sharing with you. The first one of these is that the World Championship decks have been announced for this year. We are getting, as you might expect, decks from the three World Champions. So in the Masters Division, Igor Costa's Pesidio Prism deck, that's his Darkrai, Terrakion, Mewtwo deck, is being printed. Shuto Itagaki's Terrakion Mewtwo deck is being printed, the one with which he won the Junior World Championship, and Chase Maloney's Eel2 deck is being printed, the one with which he won the Seniors World Championships. Now, the last one being printed, we're getting four like always, is Zachary Bakari's CMT deck. Now, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say I'm not exactly sure where he came or in what age division. It wasn't Masters, it was either Seniors or Juniors, but I'm afraid the tournament results page from the official website won't load at the moment, and I can tell you we didn't reach the finals. All I can assume is that they wanted the Darkrai decks, and they wanted the Eels deck, and they wanted a CMT deck in there, so they weren't just printing loads of Eels decks or Darkrai decks. So Zachary Bakari, I'm sorry I cannot tell you who he was, but he must have done quite well, and his CMT deck is being printed. If you buy these decks, you'll be getting a deck box, but when I say deck box, they'll be the little cardboard ones that only fit exactly 60 cards out of sleeves and fall apart easily, so they're not really worth having. A booklet about the World Championships, which is quite brief, but going by the last couple of years, it might be kind of cool. And a Hawaii pin badge, which was hitherto exclusive to the players of the World Championship. Came in a player pack. So now those of you that didn't get any player pack, you can get one there. And they are pretty cool pin badges. Although I don't know if I'd really pay a tenner for a World Championship deck just to get that. So they're the World Championship decks that we are getting. They're kind of cool. Oh, and the other thing to note, for those of you that don't know, these do have all the rare cards in, all your Mewtwo's, your Darkrai's, etc. These are not tournament legal. The holofoil are no longer holofoil in these decks, and they've got a different back, so they're not legal for tournament play. Now, there are two new English language promos coming out. They've been out in Japan for a little while, but they're coming out here. They are in the blister packs of Boundaries Crossed, so you get a silver Zoroark coin, which I believe hasn't been released so far, although we've had the same coin in red, so it's hardly that impressive. And you get free booster packs, and you get a promo card. There is a Haxorus, a Dragon-type Pokemon with 140 HP. It's got an attack called Armor Press for 40 damage, which costs a metal and a colourless, and it reduces any damage done to it by 20 the following turn. 2 energy for 40, reducing damage by 20 the following turn. It's alright, but to be honest, it's a stage 2, it ain't that great. And it's got an attack called Dual Chop for a fighting, a metal and a colourless. Flip 2 coins, 90 damage times the number of heads. So another really underwhelming attack. And making me pretty happy, the other promo card we're getting is Empoleon. Now, for those of you that listen regularly, you'll know I'm a huge Empoleon fan. I use the good Empoleon at some Battle Roads at the beginning of the season. I will, however, not be taking this Empoleon to any Battle Roads. And the reason is, and it pains me to say this, it's terrible. Now, it has got a potentially good attack for a single water energy. Flip 3 coins, it does 30 damage times the number of heads. With a Flip Teeny, you'll more often than not be doing about 60 damage. The problem is, with the other Empoleon and a single water energy, you can guarantee doing at least 70 by just filling your bench. So, it's just not that great. I wish it was, I really do, but it's just not that great. There is a second attack called Cold Crush for a water and a double colourless. It does 70, and you can discard an energy attached to Empoleon. If you do, it's an automatic energy discard on the defending Pokemon. But it's a stage 2, it takes 2 energy attachments. The problem with this Empoleon is, we've got the other Empoleon. Now, the art is brilliant on this Empoleon. I've got a copy sitting right next to me now because I love Empoleon and I love the art. But the fact of the matter is, it's just not a great card. Sorry about that. Now, aside from these new English promos, there are some new Japanese cards coming out.
Please, do tell us more.
I'd love to tell you more, Derek. So the first lot of cards they are getting is from a new set of decks called Exciting Battles for Everyone decks. And these are designed for beginner players. Now, the cards have gone up on Poker Beach and they haven't all even been translated. So that gives you some measure on how good they actually are. We will get all of these in due time, and there's 42 of them, if I remember correctly. So that means that in future this will be approximately 1/3 of our future set. As an example, there is a Terrakion. Now, it's just like the other Terrakion, the good one. It's got 130 HP, it's a fighting type, it's weak to grass, it's got a 4 retreat cost, and the attacks are almost as good. For just a fighting and 2 colourless energy, it does 30 damage. And for 2 fighting and 2 colourless, you can do as much as 60 damage. I am, of course, being sarcastic, that's absolutely terrible. Now, there's some kind of cool Pokemon here. All 3 of the Musketeers are making a reappearance. There's a new Keldeo, a new Thunderous, a new Meloetta. Some of the art is rather good. There's some very colourful, cartoony art, which is really, really nice to look at. But, to be honest with you, that's about all that is good. These cards are terrible, and we're going to get them at some point. Now, there are 2 new supporter cards, which I got really excited. One of them is a Professor Oak. Now, we all know that the last Professor Oak supporter that was printed was Professor Oak's New Theory. Shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 6 new cards. It was brilliant. It was especially good if it was late game and you'd been end. It was a wonderful card. It was good early game, good late game. This Professor Oak allows you to draw 2 cards. It's Bill. Bill has come back, but it's Professor Oak. Which I don't like this, because I never liked Bill. But Professor Oak, I like Professor Oak. He deserves better than this card. We've got Sharon, that is just a straight draw 3. So releasing a Professor Oak that's a straight draw 2, it's no good. There's also a Fennel supporter card, kind of similar, except if you want to draw 2 cards, you have to flip a coin and get a heads. The upside being, if you get a heads, you get to flip again, and another heads gets you another 2. It's flip a coin, draw 2 cards for each heads, and you keep flipping until you get a tails. Potentially amazing, but you've got a 50-50 chance of using your supporter and doing absolutely nothing. So, it's just bad. The really annoying thing about this set, though, is that in this set, you get Pokemon Catcher. You get your very own Pokemon Catcher, which is just, it's a little bit annoying, to be honest. We get Pokemon Catcher and Emerging Powers, a set that sold very badly because other than Emerging Powers, it was a poor set. And we got a secret rare, a shiny, a golden Catcher. So in this country and in America, Catchers are becoming more and more expensive, more and more sought after. In Japan, they're giving them away in starter decks. So, yeah, do with that information what you will. Now, slightly more exciting, although still not amazing, there is a Team Plasma gift set. This has also gone up on sites like Poker Beach and has now been translated. But to be honest with you, there's only really 3 cards in there that I think are any good. It's a Team Plasma set, so a lot of the Pokemon there are Team Plasma. And The only two Pokemon I think are worth a mention are Giratina and Darkrai. Now, the Giratina has 130 HP, it's a Psychic Pokemon, and for a Psychic and a double colourless, it does 50 damage if the opponent is, or the opponent's Pokemon I should say, is affected by a special condition. This attack then does 50 more damage, which is alright. It one-hits a Mewtwo if you can get a special condition on them. Something like a Moongus again here would be good, or any range of Pokemon. And it's got a second attack called Shadow Claw for 90 damage, but it does require 2 Psychic and a double colourless, which is quite steep for a non-EX Pokemon. But you do get to discard a card from your opponent's hand without looking, which is potentially alright, I suppose. It is a Giratina which isn't an EX. It is a Psychic Pokemon which isn't an EX and can one-hit things like Mewtwo and Cresselia, so it's certainly not terrible, but the attacks are just a little bit expensive. The thing to note here is that it is a Team Plasma Pokemon, so it can use things like Colress Machine to add extra energy to it, or you can search for it with Plasma Ball, etc. It's got those advantages that these Team Plasma Pokemon have. The other Pokemon is also a Team Plasma Pokemon, so it gets those same advantages of Colress Machine and Plasma Frigate, etc, etc. And it's a Darkrai. Now, it's again a non-EX, so it's got 110 HP rather than the ridiculous 180 of the EX. It's got a weakness to fighting, resistant to Psychic. This is all to be expected. It's got one attack for a Darkness and a Colourless. It does 30 damage, and you can switch it out with one of your benched Pokemon. Now, this is potentially quite good with something like Sigilyph. Sigilyph has got a 1 retreat cost, so you can use it with Sky Arrow Bridge. Darkrai can be going turn 1 with either a Colress Machine or a Dark Patch. So you can be hitting for 30, switching to a Sigilyph and walling. I've been watching some of the Top Cuts videos recently, and I've been playing around with Sigilyph myself, playing against Sigilyph. And one of the things I've noticed is that Sigilyph rarely attacks, unless you're Sam McClue and are playing a quad Sigilyph deck. Cheers for that, Sam. Generally, Sigilyph is put up to buy you some turns. Now, Darkrai is a nice, cheap 2-energy attacker with 2 different ways of accelerating energy, and 30 damage isn't a lot, especially if your opponent puts Eviolite on. But what this Darkrai does allow you to do is it gives you time to set up. So it potentially has some use in, say, a Darkrai Hydreigon, etc. Get out a Sigilyph and one of these Darkrai's, and remember, it's a Plasma Pokemon, so it's much easier to search for than normal. And just be doing 30 damage, walling with a Sigilyph, and giving yourself a little bit of time to set up. I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, think this is going to be an amazing Pokemon, and I don't think it's going to see a huge amount of play. But I certainly do think that there is some potential here. If there were popular Pokemon that were weak to Dark, this would turn into 60 damage walling behind a Sigilyph, and that would be really, really good. But to be honest with you, Pokemon weak to Dark, especially EXs, it is not good pickings there. In the future, yes, there's bound to be a new Gengar printed at some point. Since Gengar Prime got rotated out, we don't have a Gengar. And Gengar's one of those really popular Pokemon that we usually have one, and it's usually pretty good. So in the next couple Japanese sets, I'm willing to believe there's going to be a Gengar. Maybe then you can be donking Ghastlies with this, because Gengar's likely to be weak to Dark. But to be honest with you, it's one of those cards we've been seeing a lot of recently. There's potential, but nothing great. Now, what is also very, very interesting about these Darkrai and Giratina cards is that they are non-EX Pokemon, but they're full art Pokemon.
That sounds awesome.
I agree, and quite frankly, that is awesome. The art on them is actually pretty darn good. The Darkrai, certainly, I prefer the art on this Darkrai to probably any of the other Darkrai's, to be honest. They've got the Team Plasma logo in the background because they're Team Plasma Pokemon. They're very, very pretty cards. This does make me wonder, though, because at the moment, we've got EX trainers, and that's fine, supporters, I should say. We've got Bianca, Cherin, and Skylar coming in our set, which is released today. And actually, I probably should pause for a second here to mention I am recording this on the day that Boundaries Crossed is released. I'm waiting for my friend to give me a call so we can open the box over Skype. It's a little bit sad, but it's what we do. Come on, Landorus and computer search, quite frankly. But Boundaries Crossed is out today. Remember what I said last week and the week before, though. It's It's a set that's got half a dozen good cards, and they've taken out good cards and replaced it with rubbish filler. So although I'm actually quite excited to open my box, I'm excited purely as a collector. If I only played the game, I wouldn't have bought a box, I would have saved my money to buy singles. As it is, I collect and play, but it's fun that the set's out, but actually maybe I shouldn't be celebrating it as much as I am. So we've got these full art supporters, and we've got full art EXs. What this means is we've got some full art non-EXs coming. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing that they're going to start doing in Japan. It might be something they just do in these gift sets. It could be something they start doing in packs, and it's just the first time they're doing it in this gift set. It could be a complete one-off. What I do worry about slightly is that this could be in our secret rare slot. For instance, people are saying about boundaries crossed, and this is not guaranteed, but there's an average of 2 A spec, 2 EXs, 2 full arts. But most people in their box seem to be getting a full art supporter and a full art EX. And personally, and I'm sure I'm not alone here, I would much rather have a full art EX than a full art supporter, because I can just use the cheap supporters you can get for 50p or 50 cents. Whereas the EXs, you can only get the super rare or the super duper rare full art. So I don't like the idea that this might take up our secret rare slot in the future, but I do think they're very pretty cards, and it is kind of cool that we're seeing full art non-EXs. Now the last card which is worth looking at in this plasma set is Getis. It's a new supporter, and the first time you hear about this, it sounds absolutely amazing. Getis reads, look at your opponent's hand. Shuffle all of the items in their hand back into their deck and draw that many cards. So you can take all of your opponent's catchers and switches and ultra balls. Not only do you get to get rid of all the items in their hand, and it is only items, not supporters, not stadiums, but it does include tools because they are trainer item tools. You get to put all of them back in. By then we'll have things like Chorus Machine and such. And you get to draw cards as well, which quite frankly is spectacular. Sometimes. And the first time I saw this, my initial reaction was, oh my god, that's ridiculously amazing. And the more I look at this card, the more I think about it, it's not actually that good. Because on average, your opponent might have 3 or 4 trainers, which means in terms of draw, you're getting a Cherin. Now, don't get me wrong. You're also going to be getting, for instance, 3 of their cards put back into their deck. As Disruption, I can see the value in this, but it is a poor draw supporter. Imagine it's late in the game, you end your opponent to 1, and you draw a Getis. On their turn, they're going to draw a card. If they've got any trainers, they're probably going to play them, and then you've got a dead card in your hand that does absolutely nothing. It would be like drawing a Hooligans Jim and Kaz after you've been end to 1. It's really bad. As draw, it's terrible. It's potentially good for Disruption, but the more I think about it, the more I don't really like it. Trainer items, there's no limit to how many can be played per turn. It means that if your opponent thinks you've got a Getis, they can easily play around it. Now, this might have the consequence that people will start playing around it, that people will start using their items poorly, using it when they shouldn't be, just to stop a Getis. But to be honest, I don't really like it. Looks amazing, actually not that great. And the final Japanese card that I need to mention is that from the new Japanese set coming out, I believe it's next month, Thunderous EX, we all knew it was coming, we have a translation. It is a lightning Pokemon. It has 170 HP, weak to fighting. That's all to be expected. It does have the lovely 1 retreat cost, which means that it can use Sky Arrow Bridge. And it's a Plasma Pokemon, which means it has all the advantages that Plasma Pokemon have. Now, it's got 2 attacks, and they're both alright. The first attack for a single lightning energy does 30 damage and allows you to attach an energy card from your discard pile to one of your team Plasma Pokemon. It's decent as energy acceleration. It's kind of like Abundant Harvest, except you can attach it to your bench Pokemon. That's good in that it then forces your opponent to either take out the Thunderous and allow you to attach energy, or to take out the one you've attached energy to and take out your Thunderous. It is only 30 damage, but actually it's a half decent turn 1 attack. The second attack is for a lightning, colourless. It does 90 damage, which isn't great, but it will one-hit things like Tornadus EX and things like Lugia EX, which is going to be popular. And if you've got a Plasma Energy attached to it, all these Plasma EXs have an extra effect if you've got a Plasma Energy attached. Then you get to discard an energy card. So the first attack, nice and cheap, pretty much guaranteed to be off turn 1. You get to put an energy into your hand. You get to attach an energy from the discard to one of your benched. And the second one, like all these Team Plasma EXs, the second attack is slightly overpriced, but you can use something like Chorus Machine to get it going quicker. And actually, automatic energy discard plus 90 damage. If you're playing against a deck that doesn't have energy acceleration, Thunderous Hammers, anyone? It's not great, it's not game breaking, but I quite like the look of it. I think there's some things that we can do. And that brings me to a little deck analysis we're going to do this week. There's a fair bit of news, but there's some deck analysis I want to talk about a little bit. And it is Blastoise Keldeo. Now, I talked about this a little bit last week, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but I want to give everyone a quick rundown of the deck, how it works, and some of the things you should consider putting in here. So very simply, it all revolves around, you shouldn't be surprised to hear, Blastoise and Keldeo. Blastoise works like Emboar, attach any water energy as much as you want to any of your Pokemon. That's pretty good. Now Keldeo has an attack called Secret Soar which does 50 damage for free colourless. That's not particularly good. However, it does 20 more damage for each water energy attached. So if you put free water energy on, then that 50 damage becomes 110. Which means you've got one of those Pokemon that allows you to KO absolutely anything. If you get, for instance, 6 energy on there, you're doing 170. That's enough to KO something like a Tornadus EX, for instance. If you get 7 energy on there, you're doing 190, and that'll KO any EX. That's pretty good. Now, the deck's main thing is simple. You get Blastoise out, you rain energy down, you hit. Repeat to fade. And as I mentioned last week, there's some things that help Blastoise set up. Squirtle, one of the best things about this deck. It's got a brilliant ability which makes it invulnerable on the bench. Now, something like Darkrai, it's quite good because it means they can't be picking into your, eventual Blastoises before you get them evolved. But it also means that they're not going to be under fire turn 1. And we have now got Landorus, which does 30 to the active, 30 to one on the bench. Which means that if you are a Blastoise player, you put 2 Squirtles down, your opponent, if they start Landorus, can KO both of those Squirtles before you get a chance to evolve them. 30 to each on their first turn, you get a turn, can't evolve, it's your first turn, KO both the second turn. They can still KO one of them, but that ability stops it being KO'd the second turn. It stops the bench one being KO'd, which is really good. Keldeo also has a very useless ability called Rush In. It's a switch, but it only works to put Keldeo as the active. It reads, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may switch this Pokemon with your active Pokemon. So if your opponent tries to capture out the Blastoise, which has a hefty retreat cost, doesn't matter, Keldeo goes active. And actually, all it means is that Blastoise can now be got with Heavy Ball. But Keldeo can't, so it's not all that great. Now, one of the cards you should really consider running with this is Super Scoop Up. And the reason is very simple. You rain a bunch of energy down on Keldeo, you start hitting them. They half kill you. Use Super Scoop Up. If you hit a heads, you pick up Keldeo and all the energy. You put your Blastoise or anything else active. You then bench Keldeo again. You can put all the energy down immediately with Blastoise's ability. Use Keldeo's ability to put it active. Boom. Completely healed. It's like a max potion. There is literally no downside. But remember, Super Scoop Up works on a flip. One of my biggest problems with Keldeo is Super Scoop Up's flippy. So let's take Super Scoop Up out of the equation for the minute. If you're playing against Keldeo, they're going to be up going turn 2, turn 3 if they've got a nice consistent list. Most of the time. It'll fail occasionally, stage 2s do. But generally you're looking at turn 2, turn 3. Against a regular EX, something like a Darkrai or a Tornadus, etc., they're going to be 2-hitting you. But if you get enough energy on, you can be 1-hitting them. Get 6 energy on, you'll KO something like a Tornado. 7 energy, you can KO any EX without Eviolite. But if you've got an Eviolite, just whack another energy on that bad boy and you are sorted. The problem is, in order to one-hit, it takes a huge amount of energy. In fact, if you get 7 energy on a Keldeo, you can one-hit any EX. And a Mewtwo with a double colourless will be doing 180 damage to you, and they'll be one-hitting you. So you don't put that much energy on a Keldeo, and you two-hit everything. But as I've said, things like a Darkrai Tornado is going to be two-hitting you. So if you can two-hit them and they can two-hit you, or you can one-hit them and become very vulnerable to Mewtwo. Now, if your opponent doesn't play Mewtwo and you play Keldeo, then there are fun shenanigans to be had. Now, I know that you can play Mewtwo in your own list, but the problem is you're going to play Mewtwo down when they play Mewtwo to one-hit you. You put a bunch of energy on your Keldeo, they KO you. You KO them, and you're in a Mewtwo war, but you're behind. It's not a great position to be in. Plus, Mewtwo, it's good, but you really want to be focusing on Keldeo because of the ability, etc. Now, it's not going to be the easiest deck to make. You're going to have to put a load of energy recovery cards in there, a bunch of super rods, energy retrievals, things like that. You're going to need the usual things to get a Stage 2 deck. Now, one of the things which is fantastic here is Skylar. Skylar allows you to search for that rare candy. Now, Skylar is a card I'm not hugely sold on yet. I need to do more testing. My advice, run a variety of supporters, stick in Skylar rather than, for instance, a Cherin or something you might run, and stick in Random Receiver, because you are going to want to be running that in there. Maybe Sillin as well to get free energy, but I don't know how well that's going to work, and to be frank, I haven't tested it, so I can't really give you any clear advice there. The last thing to really mention about this deck is Garbodor. Garbodor shuts it down. If you end up against a Garbodor, Keldeo EX can't switch in, Catcher works nicely, and let's face it, Keldeo decks aren't going to be running Switch because of Keldeo. And Blastoise can't put energy down, so Garbodor will wreck it. But then Garbodor hasn't been that good since it came out. And actually, one more thing I should mention is Kyurem EX. I love this EX. It can be used in here. 3 energy, 60 damage, discard a special energy. 4 energy does 120. Now, to be honest, 4 energy on a Keldeo does 130, and that will automatically one-hit something like a Terrakion rather than falling 1 energy less. So that second attack isn't that great. But there's 2 reasons to run Kyurem. First of all, it's got an uncommon weakness in metal, and even if your opponent is teching grass, Blastoise and Keldeo both being weak to grass, in comes Kyurem. And if your opponent's playing a deck with a lot of special energy, Kyurem can absolutely roll through them. Now, just to finish off my little Blastoise discussion, I've had a quick look online at what people are saying about Blastoise Keldeo, and people aren't being all that positive about it at the moment. People are saying it's inconsistent, although some of the lists I've seen saying it's inconsistent, I fear it's a list. Don't play free rare candy and tell me your stage 2 is inconsistent. I told you this before with Hydreigon. If you're running a stage 2 for rare candy, put some Skylar in there. Put some Random Receiver to get Skylar. Make your deck consistent. I've heard people saying, and again I have not tested this enough to be sure about this, don't bother with techs. Don't use Super Scoop Up, don't use Mewtwo. Focus on getting set up, recovering energy, smacking with Keldeo. It's an interesting take on it. Certainly in the mirror, that might be a good way to go. And I've heard people say it's very much an autopilot deck. Get Blastoise, rain energy, smash. I've heard people say it's more autopilot than Durant. However, for all of those things, you might not be right. Some people are saying it takes a lot of skill, although actually there is clearly skill in the deck, but I don't think it's as skill intensive as some decks. And inconsistency, like I've said, there's ways around it. So what I'm going to finish off with this week is talking about a little bit of forum gossip. Now, I don't like getting dragged into forum gossip, especially when it is directed at specific players. And usually, I don't, because I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. However, there is a thread which has been set up on PokerGym dedicated to accusing a player of cheating. And actually, in this respect, I agree with them.
You're kidding me, right?
Oh, how I wish I were, Derek. No, unfortunately. And not only was he cheating in a game which he knew was being recorded for the Top Cut. Now, if you go on the Top Cut's website, thetopcut.net, to be honest, I probably shouldn't be pushing other websites. I should be focusing my own. But hopefully, sooner or later, the Top Cut will give me a shout out. And to be honest, I do love their recorded game videos. You can go on there, and they've recorded a game from Indiana Regionals Round 3, Andrew Newman against Ryan Souls. And I had a quick look, and Matt Alvis on PokerGym has chucked up a little thread about this. I found it very interesting. He's titled it, "You Can't Be This Stupid, Can You?" And he makes 3 allegations. He says that at 8 minutes 15, Newman plays an N and begins to shuffle his deck when a Pokemon catcher falls face up onto the table. He says, watch closely to where that Pokemon catcher ends up. Newman places the Pokemon catcher on the bottom of the deck, shuffles it to the very top of the deck, shuffles a few more in the middle of the deck, being careful not to change the top card of his deck. His opponent doesn't cut because the opponents here, I've seen the game, they got into this routine of not cutting. But it's very easy to make your opponent not cut. If you don't cut their deck, generally they won't cut yours. Souls does not cut, and lo and behold, the top card of Newman's deck is a Pokemon catcher. Okay, but that could be a coincidence, right? So let's skip to 21 minutes. After Souls knocks out a Garchomp, Newman sees he needs an energy to do Dragon Blade with his second Garchomp, which sits on the bench as he decides what to promote. Despite having a free retreating Emolga on his bench, he confidently promotes the Garchomp, plays an N, places his hand on top of the deck, proceeds to look through his deck, and just an aside here, you are not allowed to look through your deck when you play an N. I had a big argument with some guy at a tournament once when he did this. He ended up getting away with it because he'd previously played a Pokemon collector. I took offence to that, but there was nothing I can do. When you're playing a shuffle card, you do not get to look through your deck. So he looks through his deck, Newman shuffles, Souls doesn't cut, and oh look, he draws an energy. But you know, these 2 things alone, that's not enough to accuse someone of cheating. At 22:45, Newman plays a random receiver, revealing the remaining 3 cards of his deck, which includes a Garchomp. With no support remaining in his deck, he shuffles his 3 remaining cards. Now, usually with 3 to 5 cards remaining, this is the dude on PokerGym talking, not me, you give it a nice long shuffle so as to be sure you are sufficiently randomising your deck. Not Newman. He shuffles his 3 remaining cards by simply moving the Garchomp from the front to the back of the deck and then to the front again. Next turn he draws. Guess what he draws? It's a Garchomp! Now, that, on PokerGym, all these posts, you can like them. This has been liked more than any other post I've seen. And what I really like about this, the community as a whole has really come out against this form of cheating. And to be honest, I've seen the video, I've watched the clips. I genuinely believe this is just cheating. I don't know why you'd be stupid enough to do it on camera. But I don't think there's any interpretation here other than he was genuinely just cheating. And what's really heartening here is the whole community have come out and lambasted him for it. Now, I've read through the whole thread. He does not come out and defend himself here. So I'm willing to, name him. It is Andrew Newman. He is a cheat. He's well known as a cheat. He's been accused of being a cheat before. If he thinks I am being rude, then by all means, feel free to get in touch on Twitter at @TheWassy, by email at ptcgradio@hotmail.co.uk, or find me through the writing I do on 6 Prizes, and feel free to tell me that I'm wrong and defend yourself, because it's just disgusting. I hate this. I love Pokemon. My favourite thing about Pokemon is having friends in the game, playing the game, going around to tournaments, meeting new people, seeing people. It's really not about winning, and to have someone who will act like that in a tournament is horrible. But it is nice to see everyone in the community condemning it. I think it was summed up very nicely by Baby Mario, who put, "Cheaters need to know that the whole community is disgusted by them and their actions." Couldn't agree more. Which leads to the question, should something be done retrospectively? Now, I believe it should. The Top Cut record these games, Pokemon allow them to record it, Pokemon know they're recording. It has been caught on camera, it is obvious, it's happened, and those 3 examples I gave you, by the way, other people came up with a couple more during the game as well. He's clearly cheating throughout the game, it's caught on camera, it's shameless, something needs to be done. He has been banned before, allegedly, and I have no proof of this, so I do say allegedly for bribing a top 16 opponent at a previous regionals. He's not the kind of person we want in the game, and I sincerely hope that Pokemon do something about this. And needless to say, if they do, I'll be telling you all about it. The big lesson to learn from this: cut your opponent's deck. If you are playing a good friend and you know they won't cheat, then you don't have to cut their deck. Certainly I don't cut my mates' decks, but I know for a fact that my friends won't cheat against me. I have accidentally tried to play a second supporter in a game before. We've all done it. My friends stop me and they don't try and get a penalty against me because they're my mates. But when I play someone I don't know, I always cut or shuffle their deck. And as a side note, don't riffle shuffle your opponent's deck. Some people really don't like it. I don't like it. Don't riffle shuffle decks. And that's pretty much it for this week. You might have noticed I put some of the Derek clips back in. Recently they've been a bit long. It's taken a long time to do them, so I haven't had time. This week, a little bit shorter, a little bit easier, so they are back in. We're over 35 minutes, so I will bring it to a close now with my usual shout-outs. Thank you to 6 prizes. Speaking of which, go on 6 prizes. I've written a new article all about my Battle Rose experience. Please read it. Please rate it, and if you've got anything to say about that, whack us an email. You can find me on Twitter @TheWassy. I have 198 followers now. If you're listening to this and you don't follow me, please come and follow me because I want 200 listeners. I have 200 followers on Twitter, and as I get 500 listeners a week, there's at least 300 people who are likely to listen to this who don't follow me on Twitter. Just a couple of you, please follow. I want to have 200 followers. I want that mark. You can email me at ptcgradio@hotmail.co.uk, or if you're listening to this on Pokemon Dan's YouTube channel, please just leave a comment below. As always, my name's Ross, and you've been listening to PTCG Radio.
Well, thank you for that, Ross. It was both informative and stimulating.